Dads, are you afraid you're not going to get the kids because you're a dad and not a mom? I'm here to tell you that's not necessarily the way it's going to go. Look, I get where you're coming from. I get that fear that you have. And look, I relate to you. When I first got divorced, my kids didn't live with me primarily. I had them every other weekend and paid child support. So I've sat where you're sitting and I understand what that feels like. But I'm here to tell you the dads do get the kids primarily more often than you would think. Because the question isn't really, are you a mom? Are you a dad? There's this big fear and big misinformation and myth that dads don't get a fair shake in court. Look, really great dads sometimes even are a beneficiary of an overreaction to that perceived bias. But really great dads do really well in court because the court is going to consider not are you a man or a woman. They're not legally allowed to do that because of the Constitution of the United States of America. But what they will consider is who does the primary caretaking and raising of these kids? Who puts the kids to bed at night? Who takes them to school? Who arranges play dates? Who gets them to the doctor? Who makes sure that their allergies are taken care of? Who knows their best friends' names, their teachers' names, shows up to PTO meetings? So let me ask you, dads, is that you? If it is, you may stand a pretty good chance of having primary of your children. If it's not, you may not have primary of your children, but it won't be because you're a man and because you're a dad, but because you've not served the role of the primary parent. So if you can, take that chip off your shoulder, that fear, and I'm asking you to do a lot, I understand, but it really isn't like that anymore. And let's get focused on the reality of the situation, not the fear part. Like, what are the things that you need to be doing to set yourself up to be the primary parent? And that's all those things I mentioned, taking them to school, being actively involved as the primary parent in their life. Really, the outcome, it's in your hands, man. Dads, if you want primary custody in the state of Texas in your divorce or custody modification, the first thing you're going to do is become parent of the year. Look, you've got to get a real assessment of what goes on in your household. Like, who is the primary parent? Who takes the kids to school? Who drops them off? Who picks them up? Who arranges play dates? Who does bath time, homework, bedtime, doctors? Is that you? If it is, excellent. There are so many great dads that we work with at our firm. Some of my very favorite clients are the really amazing fathers that we have the chance to represent. And if it's not you, it's not too late. You can begin to become the parent of the year. Step up, step into those activities. Be the sort of guy who takes the kids to the doctor. When they call from school, they call you first to come pick up the kids. You arrange play dates. You go to swim class. Those are the sorts of things that you can do to prepare as parent of the year to ensure, or at least give yourself definitely the shot of having the primary parent designation in your custody or your divorce. It's not necessarily biased against you. Like, look, in some of those small counties, they can still have some antiquated ideas, but it's really not as against you as a lot of stuff online makes it seem. There are so many great dads out there. And if you aren't in that position, you can work to get there and everybody wins. Your kids are going to love it. Go coach their t-ball team. Go to their practice. Hang out with them after school. All of that is within your control. Did you know that the age of your children could affect whether you can have primary custody of them as a dad? Here's what I mean. The older that kids get, the more likely a court is to consider their wants and wishes. And once a child turns 12 years old, on motion of a party, a court must interview them and talk to them to see what they would want. Now, that doesn't mean just because a 12-year-old says, I want to live with dad, or I want to live with mom, or I want to live on the moon, that that's what they're going to do for them. It really depends on the maturity and the experience of that child. So just think about your 12-year-old. Are they the sort of 12-year-old you could trust to run a board meeting? Or are they the sort of 12-year-old who has a hard time figuring out how to make the microwave work? If they're of the latter, then the court may not consider as much their opinion once they're 12. But every year they get older, the more a court is going to listen. Like by the time they're 15, 16 years old, the court's pretty much going to be like, look, sounds like you've got a pretty good head on your shoulders, and going to take that into consideration a lot when making their decision. So as your kids get older, if you're the sort of dad who is like beating your head against the wall, that my kids are begging me saying, Dad, we want to live with you. We don't want to go back to mom's. We don't like her new boyfriend. She doesn't have good clothes. She doesn't spend time with us. She's always on her phone. Like whatever it is they tell you. If the kids are 12 years old and up, my opinion is you're going to have a lot better of a shot if that's what they're saying to you. And then that's what they're willing to tell like their counselors or the judge. That's why when they're 12 and up, I think that you would have a better chance if all of those other factors line up. You just have to proceed kind of carefully, because getting a kid in front of the court and in front of a judge is a very heavy and could be even traumatic experience for the child. Judges don't like it. Lawyers don't like it. Nobody wants the kids to have to be involved in this mess. And it may be the option that allows your kids to come live with you primarily. So talk with a lawyer to consider your options of whether your preteen or teenager might be able to speak to a court about coming to live with you primarily.